Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We're about to start round four of the Premodern Showdown series. I'm joined by Will? Question mark. I don't want to
My
offend.
name is Lord Vader.
I don't want to upset anyone. Otherwise, I feel like I might be in a little bit of trouble. So, um, yeah. So let's look at our schedule as we have our players. So we have Jeff White up against Rich Shea, and they will be our last round of the night. Let's look at the decks that we have available to them. All right. So Jeff White has brought Red Green Goblins, Replenish, and then Survival Elves. He played Survival Elves last week, so he won't be playing that tonight. Rich Shea has Red Green Goblins as well. He has Parfait Oath, and then Blue White Stifle Knot, which he played last week. So Jeff and Rich both have goblins as a choice, and then Jeff has an option of the parallax combo, and Rich has the parfait oath. So, is there anything you want to talk about of the decks available, or do you just want to talk about which decks they're playing right away?
I think all of these decks are fantastic. I can
Okay,
feel the hatred.
feel the hatred. All right, here we go.
Yes.
So Jeff will be starting us off. He will be playing the Parallax Replenish combo deck. So we saw this in the hands of Lanny earlier today. Jeff's
No, that's way too fucking hot.
okay. Jeff's
That's
doing,
way too damn hot. I can't do it.
Jeff's doing the same thing. The same idea. The deck is slightly different. I think there's no Mox Diamonds, and he has more copies of Attunement, no Careful Studies. But in general, uh, the looking to use the graveyard combo and get things done. And
Mhm.
Rich will be playing the Oath Parfait list. So, yeah, this is what Rich is known for. Um, he is a master of this deck. He is the one who kind of brought it onto the scene, and it kind of slices and dices and does it all. Do you have any thoughts about the the Oath Parfait list that Rich has done? Is there anything in this list that you see that is different than normal, or what do you like about the Oath Parfait list that Rich has brought?
I've had a good chance to play against this a few number of times. It is generally on par with what we've seen. Some rotating cast members here. I like the two dress main. I think that's always a correct choice. Sometimes it's swapped in and out. Um, Four Enlightened Tutor package. He's whiff waffled a little bit between them sometimes, I believe. The big one that I'm seeing is the Gemstone Mine. That's a land that he's swapped between a number of different things. So this is a nod of just trying to make sure that that mana sits where he needs to when he needs it to. So
Sure. I mean,
that's a big
it's
thing.
a small change, but it might give it a little bit of different dynamic in certain matchups. We've seen Gush out of the blue parfait lists, and a lot of the
Hmm.
cool things is you can play lands and then eventually trigger land tax. Do you want to let our players know? Well, they're already starting, so let's jump down.
All
So
right, sounds good.
we got Rich. He's gonna kick things off with the land tax off of an undiscovered paradise, and then Jeff will play a plains, and so Rich gets to trigger his land tax for one of the might be the last time, or well, not necessarily the last time, but near the last times
Yeah,
in pre-modern, at least for a while. So
yeah. The land tax swan song full effect here for the
yep.
rest of this. Though Jeff's beautiful planes over there, a Jeff White signature,
Yep.
one could say.
So
Um,
Rich is able to even just like catch back up on mana with the Mox Diamond, and he's still playing
mhm.
the undiscovered paradise again. So he still has that option if he wants to trigger land tax that he can next turn.
He certainly can. This matchup, I've not played a lot of it, but Jeff has the ability to play it slower. He's not really threatened early, so he has a lot of time to set up. Um, And this might be one of those matchups where you're just going to trigger tax a lot of the time. And there's almost no way to avoid it.
Yeah, Chad has asked about how intimidating the library of Rich Shay looks, and he's at least got these double sleeved. I don't know, it might even be triple sleeved, but that it does look. If you just look at Jeff's deck compared to Rich, one looks like it's towering above the other.
I mean, it's a complete flex, obviously, not to protect cards, just like he's just providing a big deck. He knows he got the big cards, so that's what he's doing.
Oh,
yeah, we're not going to see a
I'll put
lot.
up a poll. Chad is asking about that, so let me do that real quick. Oh, I forgot to do the results of the last one. I think that was from. All right. Oh, was this? All right. Oh, it was a poll and not a prediction. That's what I did differently. Okay. So let me get that up if you want to keep people updated on what's going on in the match.
Absolutely. As the poll goes up, early turns being passed back and forth here. Ivory Tower not quite getting there, but more importantly, the Tormod's Crypt has been found early to present a threat to Jeff's game plan. Rich running the one Tormod's Crypt early, found it naturally. An intuition being fired off here by Jeff. Trying to think what he's going to fire into this Tormod's Crypt. Maybe, if I'm looking at his list, if he has a couple of Seal of Cleansing. Yep, he's going probably triple Seal of Cleansing to clear the path, as it were,
Okay.
from the Tormod's Crypt. So, strong intuition here to find the threat neutralizer.
So he'll make that proactive play that'll give him the option kind of to combo off later. So
Exactly. And that's an interesting dynamic here. Like, he doesn't have to seal right away. He can still develop. He doesn't have to essentially seal until he wants to go off, or Rich forces something like an Aura of Silence or something of that nature to try and clear it. So it's really a game of chicken to an extent, as both players sculpt their late game plans. There's a Tide coming out early. I do like to see this kind of controlling the mana base now that the land tax has been removed. And one of the downsides, I think, in my opinion, of the land tax strategy is while it can be effective with the lands it gets, it usually isn't in a position where it's playing out a bunch of lands. So getting rid of them, even for a couple turns, can stymie what's going on. So yes, I don't know if that's those look like Tylenols, maybe.
yeah,
The Tylenol counters
they also might just
in full effect.
Yeah, so the little flavorful tokens, I guess, just to be a pain.
Yep. So he'll do that. Kind of cripple Rich a tiny bit on land, not horribly. Still has the option to do tricky things with the tax or the disenchant. I'm wondering though if, and I'm not as familiar with both sides of these because I'm a red player who counts to 20 sometimes. I wonder if playing the disenchant maybe would have been more, or not the disenchant, the seal first in case of a duress, and you got rid of your last answer. Well, there's an opalescence. Gonna go ahead and swing here.
Yeah, is Jeff just gonna issue a beatdown plan here?
I mean, if it's going good, it's going good. What are you gonna do? Rich on 3 cards hasn't been able to effectively use the Ivory Tower to gain any life.
Yeah. Rich did mulligan to 5, and so that definitely set him back to not fully utilize the Ivory Tower.
Mm-hmm. And we are seeing. So he's going to take 5. He's going to take another 5. Oh, there's the sword. So that will gain some life for Jeff. That will be a tide gone. Jeff on 1 card in hand, and this deck doesn't necessarily.
Oh, he's got more than one.
Oh, sorry. It was just a pile. I lied.
He's got a grip full of cards.
I lied. Like I saw the one there. Like,
Yeah,
he's got 1 card. He's bad spot, but apparently not a thing.
I thought the same thing until it expanded, and it's like, all right, he's got
It's
options.
like a slinky.
Yeah.
It's a fan.
Yeah.
Just like I'm just getting hot here. Let me brush myself off. This has to be just an interesting matchup in how it plays out because Rich has an answer, right, to the shenanigans, in which Jeff goes and gets an answer to get rid of that. However, the long game, I think, has to favor Rich in a lot of ways with the blessings and the duresses.
Ooh, is this
duress really strong?
Taking out the seal of cleansing, right?
I would assume because that's his last seal of cleansing.
Yeah,
his other 3 are in the yard.
Is there other ways that Jeff can get? I guess what we kind of talked about before is committing enough into a replenish and then making him use the crypt, and then you kind of like go off again, use like frantic search or attunement, and then kind of rejuice your graveyard after that. So maybe, I mean, while the seal does have some utility, but like maybe it's not the problem here.
That could definitely be true. I still think I would have liked to see that seal of cleansing come out before the parallax tide, because if Rich has to answer that, cool, he wastes something to answer on it. But if he goes seal into like parallax tide, then all those lands actually go away. At the very least, if you wanted to do that, or he can at least have the seal on the board. That could be a wrong analysis, certainly, but I mean that's what my small brain would have thought about.
We do see the parallax wave in Jeff's hand, and since Opalescence is already in play, that would leave Jeff with the ability to always protect the wave. So if you're not familiar with the timing, basically you're able to target opponent's creatures and then exile out the wave so that the creatures of the opponent are gone permanently, and then the parallax wave like resets as a new creature with fading sounder. So you'll always like have your creature at the ready. Not that Rich is a very creature centric deck, but you're able to protect your own parallax wave against a card like Swords of Plowshares that would be from Rich.
I'm actually slightly now. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I don't think Rich can truly beat that beyond gaining a bunch of life, right? Because it'll always protect itself.
Rich has to get rid of the Opalescence first, because the Opalescence is not a creature, because it's all other creatures.
Oh, that's right. You are right. So if we see another Opalescence, then it'll, I assume, lock itself up. Because that way they'll both be creatures.
I'm trying to think if Rich had enough like Swords to Plowshares, if there is a way he could interact, but it's probably pretty unlikely.
Okay. But either way, I mean, Rich does not have a plethora of answers main deck. He's got the 1 Aura of Silence and the 1 Seal of Cleansing.
Yeah, and Lord Darkview points out that like because the Opalescence is in play, Rich does have another enchantments himself. So like in Oath of Druids doesn't do anything because you could just exile that because it's a creature. But,
correct.
Land tax would be probably a more relevant one.
So maybe the correct answer here was, in light of the board, the wave. I mean, Rich is a great player and maybe had the seal already, so there goes the Opalescence. Or he tutored for it. I'm sorry. So tutor for seal. I'm gonna go ahead and put that on top. Was that upkeep? He
did it end of turn.
Or is that end of turn?
What? I guess it was upkeep. Because he used the mana and then to cast a tutor and then has the scroll rack.
Okay, there's that. Okay.
Thanks to Undiscovered
Right, there it
Paradise and
is.
the Mox Diamond,
So-
he's got Seal Cleansing mana.
So Rich having the answer to an opalescence. I'm assuming he's targeting the opalescence.
Yeah. So Jeff kind of just wants another Opalescence, I think.
Yeah. Because then it'll be all down to the aura of silence. His Argivian Find is in the side. I mean, he can blessing things back, but that's a long, long game in the face of a 4/4 beating you down every turn.
Yeah.
I do believe, and Lanny can confirm that Lanny, I think, feels like this matchup favors the blue-white replenish player.
I was to say, like, so the Oath Parfait does a lot of interaction, but like, it's not operating on the same axis that what Jeff is typically trying to do. Like, Sword Splashers is not really a good card, and like the way it prevents you from doing stuff is not like it's not like counter magic or discard spells. I mean, I guess there are some duresses, but like the combo usually can be like pretty quick, and Rich doesn't have too many ways of stopping Jeff. So yeah, I would rather be on Jeff's side, at least for the pre-boarded games.
Yeah, post board becomes a bit of a different story. Oh,
we have Azur's Weirding
going for the.
And
All right,
with the Ivory Tower already in play, this might just be kind of locking things out.
Yeah, the Ivory Tower will eventually find its way into becoming relevant with life total and outpacing the damage that may be done, denying Jeff cards. So it's really a waiting game going on out here. I think it's going to be real tough for Jeff to get out from under this weirding.
So
Attunement
Rich only needs to be concerned about Opalescence and Replenish, right?
Yeah.
Because the Seal of Cleansings are gone.
Yep, they're all gone.
So I guess we should talk about Azur's Weirding real quick in case someone's not familiar with it. So basically, players play with their hands up, and then whenever a player is going to draw a card, the opponent can say, I'm going to pay 2 life, and instead of you drawing that card, it goes in the graveyard. And they don't get to draw a different card because of it. Like, so you could just deny draws. And eventually, if Jeff doesn't deny like every single draw from Rich, he's going to get to the point where he has cards in hand where he's gaining life from Ivory Tower, and so
there it is.
Rich can just prevent everything.
Yep.
So
yeah, at that point, all he had to worry about was 3 replenishes, 3 opalescence. That was a total of 12 damage. Rich is at 16 life, so he can just deny any interactive pieces to Jeff, because there's going to be no pressure to close out that life total.
I'll note some people have questioned like the Azur's Weirding, like whether it's valid in the deck, and some people feel like it's not needed, that you can just win the games, that it's kind of a win more card. But this matchup specifically, I think, is a good example of why it's so powerful. That like, because you can't prevent your opponent from casting spells. Like a lot of times, like if it's just a creature, you can respond to it with the Swords of Plowshares. But if there's like spells like Replenish or just like an Opalescence is kind of, because it naturally protects itself in that situation that we talked about. Azur's Weirding is like one of the few cards that can prevent it in that situation. So Rich's deck building and using the Azur's Weirding really came into effect there.
I would agree. And Azur's Weirding is also one of those cards that is skill intensive, matchup knowing intensive. And Rich is a top, expect probably one of, if not the top caliber mind within Premodern as far as playing goes. And he has played this deck since its inception because he was helping to innovate it completely. So if there's anyone who's going to drop Azur's Weirding on, he would understand exactly the ramifications. It's probably Rich.
Yep. So I'm looking at the sideboard of Rich Shay. He has Argivian Find, Tormod's Crypt, Crumble, Duress, Red Elemental Blast, Pyroblast, Ray of Revelation, Seal Cleansing, 2 Pyroclasm, Warmth, Anuid Brushhopper, Karmic Justice, Engineered Plague, and Akroma Angel of Wrath. So a lot of variety, a lot of different options he can access. I guess it's a matchup where he's going to look a lot different post board. I would imagine that the Oath of Druids and the Swords of Plowshares are cards that are coming out. That's 8 cards there. So, I mean, pretty much anything that has any value. Argivian Fine, Tormod Script, Duress, the Blasts, Ray Seal, that's 6. Still want 2 more cards. I don't know, Anurid Brushhopper. I guess that's 8.
I mean, and so an interesting thing is Anurid Brushhopper actually can work somewhat. Well, can't really work around the combo with Wave, but it provides an early threat that can get in there that it's harder to interact with. But I think this is really going to be, we bring in all the hate, the crypts, duresses, all of that. And Rich plays for a very methodical long game in which probably he is trying to land Zerswing again. Because if he does it right, I don't know how Jeff actually recovers against the Zersweirding. Now, Jeff can bring in a few things. The Arcane Denial could actually come in here, and while giving Rich the choice of cards might be bad, it gives him a hard counter to actual threats to what he's doing. I think that could be worthwhile. I'm not sure about Orm's Chant or Abeyance to set up a combo-y turn.
I think I would want Abeyance for against like the Tormod Script.
Sure, I can see that. Yeah, no, but I definitely think that Rich probably brings in more threats. And another thing we are slightly discounting and have not mentioned is the presence of 2 Armageddon, in which I am not sure how well Jeff handles being Armageddoned. So that could be interesting. So I suspect that Jeff's game plan doesn't change too much. He's just bringing in a couple pieces to try and force through his answers, where Rich brings in a variety of different answers that will probably be hard to match.
Yeah, I talked about how I liked Jeff's position in game 1, and now that he's down a game, I mean, I certainly think that Rich's game plan has gotten a lot better. He sideboarded out a lot of cards that are not very good in the matchup and brought in 6 cards that are pretty relevant. So if Rich is able to take that first game, then I don't know, maybe my prediction is not looking good, and the Jeff White fans might be a little bit nervous because I think that battle gets a little bit more uphill for Jeff.
Yeah, and there are just so few cards that have to be answered from Jeff that matter, and I think the answers just probably outweigh the cards. I'd definitely be happy to prove proven wrong. I love Jeff. I love Jeff and I love Rich. I cannot talk right now.
Children are bothering Will at the time.
Yay! I got 3 wonderful children. So yeah, I think if I had to put a slider as far as advantage or an advantage bar, I probably initially have it towards Rich at this point. As far as winning game 2 at the start.
Yeah, I will say though, I mean, like Rich kind of needs to put a little bit of pressure on his mulligan to find somewhat amount of interaction, because Jeff is a combo deck that can be pretty quick, and so if there's not a card specifically, I'm thinking Tormod's Crypt in the early game that I think Jeff could pretty easily steal a game from Rich.
Gotcha. I mean, it's certainly possible. We did not, to my knowledge, see any of our soul lands come into play last game at all. So that is something to keep in mind. That speeds up the clock. So we'll see. I don't think anything beyond I don't think the deep analysis comes in at all. Mana short. There's no real counter magic in Rich's board or in Rich's stuff for the most part, outside of a red blast and a pyroblast. So maybe, but that just seems very very narrow. All right. Do we let them know they can go?
Yeah, they should know that they should be able to begin. But yeah, like any of the cyborg games, whenever they're ready, yeah, you can.
Sounds good. Not used to this commentary deal.
All right, Lanny still thinks that Jeff is favored, even being down a game. So, looks like both players are mulliganing, I believe. So they're going to be starting with a little bit less resources, which I don't know who that hurts more. I'm not sure. I don't think it's bad either. Like, I think it's kind of the same, I guess.
Yeah. I think that Rich's deck is just so redundant in its what it's trying to do that mulligans hurt him less. Especially since his plays are, I think, earlier, where he can kind of get things online.
Yeah, and it could just be Rich that is prioritizing like having a card like Enlightened Tutor to get a Tormod script or destroying a Tormod script so that he does have some of that early interaction so he doesn't quickly die to Jeff. But
yeah, I think that's reasonable. All right, I'm going to grab a drink of water while they resolving the mulligans.
All right. We have a follow from Nicholas ADM. So thank you for the follow and welcome. So it looks like Jeff is looking at a hand. He is going to start things off with an Adhikar Waste. Yeah, land tax is a pretty good way to unmulligan yourself in some ways. So it just clears up some room for the extra lands that you're getting. I do agree there. And it looks like
there it is. Land tax there. Yep.
So I guess the only thing to note is that Rich played I guess Jeff can't really do anything with one land. So at some point,
no.
Huh? And so I was going to question whether Rich should just play a Mox Diamond or play the land tax off a Mox Diamond and pass the turn. But Jeff is going to play an Ancient Tomb, so one of the soul lands that you had mentioned before. He's at least able to like turbo out a spell, and the attunement is a good one at least against removal spells because you can't really effectively get rid of it. Though I guess the sequencing in terms of Tormod scripts sometimes it might come into play but Rich would have to be using 2 cards to kind of get that. So.
Yeah. So Rich has, in some way effectively negated his mulligan at this point. Obviously, basic lands by themselves on their face do not truly turn the matchup, but the thinning of the deck, now getting all of his colors available for all of his answers is important. Lanny does make a good point that Jeff could just completely go off this next turn. He's got a soul land. He's got an attunement.
Yeah, I guess we undersell like the explosiveness of the Parallax Replenish deck.
Yeah, there's certainly explosiveness to it. Life total not mattering, so truly able to utilize all these lands that play. There's the attunement. Draw 3, discard 4.
But it does return itself to the hand, so if you want to discard itself, it can go.
Yep. And additionally leads nicely into a replenish. If they have it, you discard whatever you want, land, replenish, and good times ahead. Rich, while he has a lot of interactive pieces, he doesn't have a whole lot of counter spells except those blasts, which He is representing with the Mox Diamond. However, Replenish being a white spell, that matters a whole lot less. So we got Attunement, Ancient Tomb. Land.
It's either a Flooded Strand or a Skycloud Expanse.
I feel like that is a Flooded Strand. I'm gonna.
That was
put
my
money
guess
on
as
it.
well. So yeah. So
Really
he's
thinking about
really
this
debating
last
with the last
card.
one.
I mean, which has to mean, I assume, gas. He's discarding land, so he's not going for, obviously, the replenish here. No land drop. So trying to control those taxes a little bit.
Well, you talked about having all gas, and one thing, like, if he doesn't have the combo in his hand, then maybe you wait and don't want to put the cards in the graveyard, because a Tormod script would then you kind of have to draw those cards again later if the Tormod script come down. So could be Jeff
That's correct.
being conservative in that manner.
Yep, absolutely. And if he's not comboing this turn, because he only really needs to get to 4 mana, he can afford not to hit his land drop here. A Scroll Rack coming out. So the pieces coming together on Rich's side of the board with that Enlightened Tutor. Enlightened Tutor, also a very powerful card within this strategy. Just the things that can happen within this deck to just make sure it does what it needs to do are incredible. Ooh, the Arcane Denial did come in. There it is. I like that.
Yeah, this is a good card to fight over too. Like the Scroll Rack, with that engine. I mean, I guess the land tax currently aren't active, but yeah, that's a good one to get rid of.
The cards. Yeah, there are maybe very few is not the right word, but there's got to be a level to the power level of cards that Jeff cares about, and Scroll Rack has to be one that's like, I cannot let this resolve. It will cause me problems. The Windswept Heath coming down, not being cracked yet.
Yeah, that gives Rich the option that, like, he can play a land, and if Jeff were to reply with another land, then Rich could just crack the Windswept Heath and fail to find if he wanted to trigger the land taxes. But if he doesn't have a Scroll Rack, then it's like, it's probably pretty hard to take advantage, because if you're just keeping the basics in your hand and drawing extra cards and not playing anything, then you're not really taking advantage. So
yeah, a little surprised, and maybe I'm surprised that maybe he didn't try and go for a Zurin Orb to kind of get himself going with land tax, since he has 2 of them out there, and it will thin the deck so much quicker. Perhaps he considers it much more a
yeah, I think the problem is that, like,
oh, there it is.
I would say I think the biggest issue is that, yeah, you can draw a bunch of basics, but if you're not able to, like, do anything with it, then you're either drawing and then, like, discarding the hand size, or you're playing out the basics, which then is counterintuitive to what you want to do with triggering land tax. So
sure, I could see it, but even the effect of triggering land tax once, just to clear out the remaining stuff, just means your deck is then all gas.
mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but here's another one. We got another Arcane Denial.
Yep. So Jeff has taken 3 damage each time he's cast those Arcane Denials, but he's keeping the Scroll Rack out of play. I mean, Rich does get 2 extra cards for his troubles, but Jeff gets an additional one. So
yeah, he's fighting real hard. It's just his deck needs to get to 4 mana to operate, and Rich is content operating on 3. at the moment. So that's the Sky Cloud Expanse, I think.
Oh, okay.
Going to go for a Frantic Search.
I mean, this could be a spot where, I mean, the Frantic Search is discarding Parallax Waves. There's no Opalescence yet, but like,
No,
yeah,
not
that would
yet.
have been like a turn where you're getting cards in the graveyard, you're drawing cards, you're actually you can net mana because of Frantic Search in the Soul Land.
Yeah. It's just, I don't think, unfortunately, the cards lined up the way they needed to. There are openings right now. That was one of them. Now with Rich, I mean, Rich has drawn 4 extra cards because of the Arcane Denials. I can't imagine those cards are going to go to waste. Lanny's saying that Jeff maybe hit some awkward draws. I am not in a position to really know that much about it, but it would seem that way. He had the explosive start. He had the lands. He controlled everything he needed to. He just needed, 1 or 2 more cards to break his way, and it's probably a game Rich has trouble winning, if not cannot win. But sometimes that's magic. There's not much more you can say about it.
Yeah, chat's chiming in about how their experiences are also similar. That the Replenish deck can be a little bit clunky. It does have a lot of 4-drops in a deck that, or in a format that can be quite fast. Rich's deck is not an example of that. He's much on the other end of that scale, but yeah, still really hasn't been able to punish Rich in any way. Though, I mean, like Jeff's interaction pieces have been pretty good. Like the 2 Arcane Denials of cards to interact with, I mean, like, is going to buy him a lot of time.
It is. It's just when you play it, much like in Stasis with that card, like if you play it, you realize, I mean, you don't have the way to punish them in the same way Stasis does with like a Black Vice, but like you need to close it out quickly because you need it once, not once, but twice. So there's 4 extra cards. If you're not locking it up quick after that, it has a very good possibility of coming back and biting you. But Jeffin is also an amazing player, so I can't imagine there's not a plan. I would not count him out in any way, shape, or form in any of this.
I would think that he probably has a number of replenishes in his hand that, like, the card he's looking for is Opalescence, because we've seen the Parallax Wave in the graveyard already. I think he discarded 2 of them. And so, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to discard multiple Parallax Waves if I didn't have to. So he might have, like, another one of those in his hand, and so could just have a very clunky draw and just not finding the Opalescence.
Yeah. So Rich going for looks like an EOT Argivian find to get back a scroll rack. Now going to be able to tax a couple times here, get what he needs out of his deck, really thin it out. And just if the scroll rack resolves, it's going to start to get real rough. Another Arcane Denial would be awesome here. Just the chances of 3 maybe are low, but I'd love to see it. Rich just taking his time. There's just no pressure. He has the time to run out his threats into counter spells right now and have time to recover from it, move past it. There's the scroll rack. Does he have it? He would have played it if he has it. There's no way he lets this resolve.
Yeah, with the extra lands, like, Rich is gonna have access to a lot of his deck. Though I'm trying to think, like, I mean, Jeff has like how does Rich close the door from this position? I mean, like if he has access to a bunch of cards, like he could have Pyroblasts or a Duress or whatnot. But if Jeff just untaps, it goes Frantic Search, discard, Opalescence, replenish. I think he's still in fine shape, right?
Possibly. The likelihood, so Rich just essentially drew 5 million cards, whatever the number is. He's got one man open. There's no way he does. It would be very unlikely he doesn't draw his way into Duress right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen one. He's got to be up to 3 post board. He Duresses here, I assume, or Crips or something. Like, I find it hard. There's another diamond. I find it hard to imagine a Duress or something of that nature isn't incoming. Well, maybe not. I could be wrong. Intuitioning. He drew the blast.
Okay. Yeah, intuition would have been a nice one if it would have been able to resolve.
Yeah. And Lanny also made a good point is he's operating all this mana off Ancient Tomb. Eventually that Ancient Tomb is not going to matter. Like, he's not going to be able to work with it.
Sure. Yeah, like his life total will become a limiting resource, so.
Yeah. And then how Rich closes it out, like just Armageddon or Zer's Weirding. This is probably a last-ditch effort on the part of Jeff. He's going to go down to... He's at 4. If he untaps, Ancient Tomb puts him to 2.
Yeah, so right now he's using... He did take an extra damage for the Edgar. I always said he's getting an extra colored source, so...
Yeah.
Did you see the cards that he discarded? I missed.
I did not catch it. At this point, it's probably either land. He's going for the intuition.
So I do believe he has mana floating here because the Frantic Search cost 3, but he had 4 mana, so there was 1 mana there. So yeah, he just used the floating mana. So he has, but he only has access to 2 mana here, right?
Yeah, like he can't that, and then even moving forward, like he can't tap that Ancient Tomb again.
Oh wait! The Frantic Search.
He's at 2 life.
No. Okay, I'm wrong. So the Frantic Search, he had tap 4 mana, had 1 mana floating, and untapped all his lands.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay, so he has to. He hasn't played a land yet this turn. He's doing this. So he has to have land. He has to have City of Traders. Does he have City of Traders in his deck list?
I think so.
I can't remember. I apologize. So if he has City of Traders replenish, that sets him up in a good spot. Because he hasn't played land. He has 2 cards in his hand.
2 City of Traders in his deck list.
So he has to. One of those cards has to be City of Traders, and then replenish.
I was gonna say if he used that more life, he could have another land and a Frantic Search, but
it's got to be the City of Traders replenish.
So he got Opalescence, Seal, so that way it's guaranteed 1 Opalescence is going to the graveyard.
Yeah.
He's just passing the turn. So.
Didn't have anything. Ugh, that's rough. He's going to abeyance. Okay, I like this.
Okay.
So he's still at 2, but then he's only at 2 life. Which is okay.
With that,
he still has to have
that Ancient Tomb is real tough.
Yeah, he's got to have a City of Traders. I don't know.
Well, then he could have done that last turn, though, right? Maybe he's trying to draw. Maybe he has the City of Traders and he's trying to draw a replenish. That could be it.
That's true. I mean, that's the way that has to make sense then, right? Because yeah, if he had it last turn, he does it last turn. There's no reason not to. So trying to draw into it, searching it up. Rich gonna scroll in response because Abeyance says you can't play abilities, right? Or
I
you
think
can't activate abilities.
it's been errated. Because I think the original text is not what it actually does. Let me see if I have an oracled one. Until end of turn, target player can't cast instants or sorcery spells, and that player can't activate abilities that aren't mana abilities.
Abilities.
Still
okay,
be
so
able
it
to
does
use
not
Watch
shut
That.
off. Yeah. So mana abilities exempt. So Rich is just going to have essentially a little time to thinky poo here. Gonna get the land taxes going. Fill the hand. He did not scroll in response. Oof. That won't.
That doesn't prevent.
Matt.
Well, let's see.
Well, he's got the other. Does he have another? Does he already have 2 opalescents? Because he discarded one early in the game, right?
Did he? I know he discarded 2 parallax waves. I don't know if he discarded another opalescence because we thought.
Does he?
I don't know if there is.
I mean, regardless, we need a City of Traders into or another abeyance to get him another turn, maybe.
I think he only has 1 abeyance, and his land is a Skycloud Expanse, so
he could have maybe he boarded enchants.
Attunement. Okay. That'll give him more looks, but it's. I mean, if you're giving Rich another turn, I mean, I guess. I mean, like Rich has had a couple turns where he saw a lot of cards and really hasn't punished Jeff per se. I mean, like the seal has make things. Well, with the attunement, that's you'll be able to pitch the other opalescence.
The other opalescence, but now it's going to be so. Even if that happens, you can't use the issue. You're giving Rich a turn. Rich has lands, a seal. He has the active scroll rack. He's going to be able to tax again. Even if it's on his upkeep, tap 1 scroll rack lands or whatever the case may be. He's
Array of Revelation. Well, I mean, yeah, that's.
I mean, it's going to force the issue.
I think what's going to happen here is it's going to be followed up with a duress. And so that combination, I think, is going to be problematic because Jeff could be like finding a replenish here. I think you discard the opalescence. I mean, also like here, just if you also the problems like not just duress, like crypt. Yeah, crypt would just be backbreaking.
Crypt, duress, any of it really.
And that's probably why Jeff's thinking like, oh yeah, I would want to save this opalescence because if there was a crypt, but it's like if he does. I don't even know if you're going to be able to come back. You're just down so many resources.
I mean, and Rich has the train rolling right now. Like he can flash back the ray. He can seal things. He's going to tax. He's going to rack.
Or like, I mean, people said Armageddon. Like that would pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, Zer's weirding, like duress, like Zer's weirding or something, would be insane. It feels difficult, if not impossible, for Jeff to probably pull out of this tailspin at the moment. I want to see it happen if it does, but feels rough.
All right, so Rich is
Drawing a billion cards.
activating the scroll rack. What is the haymaker that we're going to see? And when I say haymaker, I'm considering duress a haymaker in this situation. So
yeah, like, could you just imagine double duress too? Like, just not one, just two duresses. We'll do it. Yep, there it is.
all right, there is a replenish.
There it is. Pointing to the attunement. You want this one, right?
In the crypt. And yeah, that's enough for Jeff. So
yeah, that's it.
yeah, unfortunate for Jeff. Like the pieces came together like just a little bit too late. That like Rich had already got his engine up where he had access to a bunch of cards, and that was able to disrupt Jeff. So Rich takes it down 2-0. So I'll build a poll, which I do believe the people who predicted thought Rich was going to win. So they predicted correctly. But let's jump down and listen to the players.
Which I realize is very subjective. And I know that it's not everyone's favorite deck to play against, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't actually have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with anything. So I'm not the right person to ask about any decisions involving bans.
Hello, players. Can you hear us?
Hey, guys. Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
So, Jeff, I like that second game. You had felt like a lot of time. I don't know how many turns it was. What pieces were you missing for most of that game?
For most of the game, I was missing Opalescence.
Okay.
So if I just pop a replenish without Opalescence in the graveyard, it doesn't do anything. And it would be kind of nice to have a Tide in there as well. Not a must to get the full combo, but it would be a little nice to keep Rich off of mana, even though eventually I have the 2 Mox in there toward the end. But I was missing the Opalescence. I couldn't get myself in a position to get one in the graveyard. And, if I just replenish without one, I'm just spinning my wheels.
Right. Yeah, that's why I put the Opalescence in your hand. Your ability to cast things are starting to get constrained by your life total. And if you Opalescence one replenish and a bunch of other stuff back, I'm holding the Ray of Revelation that can just halt it. If you bring 2 of them back, it's lights out. So that's why I had to bring back that's why I gave you the Opalescence and not the Steel.
Yeah. And I don't even know. I guess it could have been lights out. Did you side out your swords?
I did.
Yeah. So I could have intuition for 3 there, and gotten a replenish off toward the end. That was probably a line I could have taken. I was surprised by Rich's lack of, I'm assuming you side in your duress, you side in your crypt, you side in your Reb, which finally came into play.
Yeah. I actually only had 9 cards I could bring in. I left Phoenix in my deck as my least bad card because I literally couldn't find a 10th card better than Shard Phoenix against you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I just couldn't get the pieces together in that last game, and then the tax and then the double tax keeping me off land and then making me take all that damage was a little rough. Eventually I had to play that land and let Rich fail to find and just start going off on taxes so I could just try and get the combo going. Otherwise I will just lose.
Jeff, is there any thought to this being a matchup where you obviously made the choice that Scroll Rack was enemy number 1 for the most part, of as bad as it feels of letting Rich tax and developing the mana earlier, even though it sucks, it puts you in a position where you have more ability to either double spell or have a higher life total. And I asked that question out of ignorance because I haven't played either of these decks or this matchup. So I'm truly wondering.
Yeah, I feel like if I had ignored his tax and started developing my mana earlier, I might have taken a line where I could cast multiple spells and have a counter as well to back it up.
Okay.
But if he gets Scroll Rack online, then the odds of him finding a crypt are very high, and the odds of him finding a duress are very high. I have one replenish in my hand. If he gets either of those off, I don't have anything to deal with it. So I think I'm just completely fucked if he starts taxing.
I think you put it really well, Jeff. You didn't actually have a credible threat that you could present. It's not like you could have walked into tax and then asked me a really difficult question. Your hand just didn't line up. So
Yeah.
if you walked into tax, it wouldn't have let you do something really good. And by not walking into tax and then by stopping the scroll, you were hobbling my development. I mean, if I get to tax plus scroll, then I'm going to be in really good shape. It'll probably be really tough to win from there. So I think you took the right lines. You gave yourself the outs.
Yeah, it was just it was tough at keeping that 6, I would say, because my game plan is to try and get either the quick combo or some early board development with Seal of Cleansing. Neither of those were a reality. I did have the 2 counter spells, so I was hoping I could draw into something that would let me develop the combo, but didn't really happen until about turn 30, and I was already at 4 life.
Yeah. Going back to game 1, Jeff, I scratched my head a little bit, again, maybe ignorance, but chat was also asking the intuition for triple Seal of Cleansing. If you remember that, is that a decision you were pretty confident in? Is that something towards it you regretted maybe putting yourself in a position where you no longer have Seal of Cleansing after that last one?
Yeah. That was, in retrospect, I think a mistake as I thought about it, because I totally forgot about Zur's weirding. And then when Rich played it, he's like, yeah, I can just pay, what was it, Rich? 12 life and you're dead.
12 life for your remaining threats.
12 life and you're dead. So that was not an optimal line. At the time, my thought process was, again, like he has a crypt on the board. So I have to play the old fashioned way and get my cards on the table. I can get like another seal to, if he wants to disrupt my kind of slower game plan with Aura of Silence or primarily Aura of Silence, I can have a seal on the board to take care of that and just like lay out my threats, because I had a couple of them. So in retrospect, if I had thought about Zur's weirding, I may not even have played the I certainly would have played it differently, and I may not even have played the intuition. In that game, the interesting choices on my end of the table, and I played them both out of order compared to what Rich had in his hand, is the first time I had Opalescence out, I played Opalescence with my Wave out. Rich had a Plow. I also had a Tide in my hand. I could have just played Tide, then played Opalescence, and then I'm blinking all my shit and he can't do anything. He happened to have the Plow, and
I had the seal, right?
You had the Plow because you
I
plowed.
had the Plow for the Tide.
You had the Plow for the Tide, right? When I played my Opalescence, I could have played the Wave and then I could have played the Opalescence.
I ended up sealing the Opalescence and then plowing the Tide.
Yeah, I don't know if you had the seal at that point. But anyway, if I go back and watch the tape, like I had the combo again, I could have played the Tide, and I believe what happened was you tutored for the seal. If I had played the Tide, locked you off a land, you wouldn't have been able to tutor and play the seal. So I played both of those sequences out of order relative to what you were actually holding. It was either if I play either of those in reverse, I have the lock.
Go to your
I'm pretty sure.
Stepping out here with no clothes, all that crap.
Okay.
But yeah, it was. I think both of those were, at least from my end of the table, interesting games. I think obviously you played those like a master. You did exactly what you needed to do to keep me off of my key cards. And I would have liked to get some quicker combos out of this deck this match, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, and I think that was the big key, because you're Your Arcane Denials did exactly what they were supposed to do, keeping the meaningful card off of Rich's side to let you have the time set up and the cards not lining up the way they were supposed to. Rich, on your end, game one seemed to probably be the one that was a little bit more shaky than either 2 or 3. With winning game 1, do you?
I don't even remember game 3.
Sure, fair enough. It was so
we're
quick.
in game 3 right now.
Fine. I'm distracted by household things right now. But
was that a joke?
No, my son's walking around being all sorts of dumb.
The day of distraction.
Can I just say that's the quote of the night, William? My son's walking around being all sorts of dumb.
I mean, yes, it's just how life is. But do you feel in game 1 that you are a dog just because you have so many dead cards and there's not really great ways outside of getting the crypt, which you found naturally to interact and maybe a couple duresses? Or what do you feel about game 1s in this?
This is a match for stoicism. I have very little control over the outcome of this match. It's really all on Jeff. So I mulligan to 5. And those were strategic mulligans. Those were no landers. And basically, if Jeff gets a good hand, I can't win. And if he has a slow hand, then I will eventually find or tutor for the crypt and win. So it's basically Jeff needs a fast hand, and then I have 3 cards on my deck that matter, right? I have my tutoresses and I have my crypt. And if Jeff has a fast enough hand, like I don't really have a chance. So I just have to hope that he doesn't have a really fast hand against me.
Absolutely.
Sometimes with this deck too, I feel like because 1 crypt is not that big of a deal. With attunement, I can respond to it. If like my enchantments are in the top half of my deck, I can just keep doing my thing. It just doesn't really even matter that much. But I think my key cards were like stuck in the bottom of this box from 1998. Also, I hope the viewers liked me having used Tylenol as counters. I left my dice at home.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was like some kind of a pun. Like I hope these are a pain for you or something. Like
no, I'm not that smart. Like, I just like don't have any dice here.
Your opponent just reaches for Tylenol. Like that's not if that dice. He had Tylenol at the ready to play against my deck. So
yeah,
it tells you everything you need to know about Parfait. I think after sideboarding, the game's getting a lot more interactive. You know, I get the red blasts and I get another crypt. I board out 9 cards, so like anything that has words on it is coming in.
Did the brush hopper come in?
Oh yeah, I left a Shard Phoenix in my deck. Literally, I cut 9 cards that were all worse than Shard Phoenix in this match.
Yeah, Shard Phoenix is a little bit of a bummer in this match.
Yes.
So
it is a thing I can recur when I have Zer's Weirding out to be able to increase my hand size under Zer's Weirding if I have a Weirding, no cards in hand, am locked out, but have a scroll rack in play. It eventually allows me to build up cards. That is literally more useful than anything in my sideboard.
I would have conceded well before we got to that point. I'm glad you explained that dynamic to me.
I don't know. You had some Tylenol. Maybe you could have been in there for the long haul. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So, what made you guys decide?
I'm just hoping, yeah, go ahead, Will.
I was going to say, what made each of you decide the decks you were going to run for this week? As far as, did you like the matchups? Are you saving them for week 3s?
We were talking about this at the start of the match. So my options were goblins or Parfait. Jeff's options were goblins or replenish. So let's walk through each of those. Jeff has to bring replenish because it is better. Like the mirror match is 50-50, but replenish is, I think, favored against goblins. And then if I bring Parfait, he'd also rather have replenish than goblins. So whichever deck I bring, Jeff is much better off bringing replenish. So from my end, if I know just bringing replenish, I can't bring goblins. The best thing I could hope for if I bring goblins is a mirror match. But if I bring goblins and he brings replenish, that's very bad for me. Instead, I have to bring Parfait, leaving me to take goblins against Tom. I mean, I actually looked at my 3 initial pairings, and then I sent Hoyt my 3. I'm picking these 3 decks in order, and he then said, "You can change your decks." And I said, "No. This is the only sequence that makes any sense for me. So I'm not changing this."
Yeah, it was the same for me. The 3-deck sequence was fully locked in weeks ago. I mean, I could play elves against any of Tom's decks, and I don't get blown out, except I got blown out. And then replenish is fine to good against either of those decks. And then, unbeknownst to me, now I get what the kids these days are calling plot armor, where I get to jam my goblins deck into Jared's rock deck, which hopefully prevents me from going 0-3.
Well, whatever your matchups are, they have to be exceedingly better than me with Fluctuator versus Dreadnought next week.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one, Will.
I mean, Alvaro's just gonna lose his Dreadnoughts. They're just not gonna show up, and I'm gonna win with 1/1s for like 3 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm taking goblins against Tom's Landstill deck, I think.
That's a good matchup.
On paper, it might be a favorable matchup, but there's no such thing as a great matchup against Tom. He's way too good a player for that.
Oh, I meant great matchup as in like to watch.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I think I have a slight edge, but I don't really have an edge against Tom in this matchup because I'm sure he'll play superbly.
Yeah, so looking forward to next week as everyone will bring their last deck, and we'll see all of what everyone brought to the table. So I'm looking forward to that.
The official deterministic week where all choices are deterministic.
Yes. So, all right. I don't see any other questions from the chat. Do you have any other comments before we let you go?
Good games, Rich.
Fantastic games. I'm glad we could put on a good show, and thanks for letting me enjoy Zer's weirding one more time before it's cast.
Yes.
Oh, I will say, just so my team, Ben Farkas was going nuts when I got locked out with Zer's weirding. He was very, 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 very happy about that.
As he should be. We all love Zer's weirding.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
I would say, I don't know. It is just a heartwarming card to lose to. I don't know. I mean that honestly because it's kind of one of those cards that you see when you're younger and you're like, man, this card's just so cool, and it's really cool when you can put it into practice. So yeah.
Yeah, I spent an afternoon in '95 with a good friend of mine trying to break this card. Eventually got there.
Yeah.
30 years later, here we are.
Yeah. All right, players, we'll let you go, and then Will and I are going to wrap things up for tonight.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Take care, guys. Have a wonderful evening.
Too.
All right. So let's go. I guess we'll look at tonight's schedule, quickly review. We started off with Lanny up against Alvaro, and Lanny was able to take that one down. Will, you played against Mike Arnold, where you were able to burn him out. And then Tom fell against Jared Doucette and his Goblins. And then Rich Shay defeated Jeff, as we just saw. So thanks, Will, for stepping in the booth. I had a good time.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, and so you're one of the 2-0 players. So how are you feeling in terms of the start of your PSS?
It's going well. Going to be 2-1 next week.
Yeah.
I legitimately have no negative 10% chances of this disaster. So I will go into our next phase 2-1 and let Alvaro completely smash me. But Lanny has mentioned this a couple times. I'm enjoying myself. I love being here. I love playing Magic. I just hope I don't make a fool out of myself when I do things. And that's fine with me. So I'm very, very happy with how it's going, and I cannot wait to see more action.
All right. Well, I look forward to it, and I hope everyone watching is excited for it too. But we will be back next Thursday, same time. We're going to start at 7 p.m. Eastern. But until next time, thanks everyone for watching, and until next time, take care.